an existential crisis, existential dilemma, because as I keep growing, I keep advancing levels of existence in terms of my way of being, in terms of my understanding of things, and the way I think, act, am, the way I be, the way I imagine. Everything changes a little bit, one way or another, and new issues come up that won't come up until you're at that level, and that's expected. I get that. To be part of the beauty of this, what we call the design of this place. But anyways, yesterday I was sad. Why was I sad? Oh yeah, no, I was good for most of the day. That's why I was like, was I? I was good for most of the day, but I became sad near the end. Angry. And, in my mind, I was thinking, I knew this was wrong, and I acknowledged that, but I still felt this way. So I just, I let myself feel this fucked up wrong way that I knew wasn't, my thinking wasn't right, and therefore my feelings about the situation weren't right either. But I let myself feel it anyways. I let myself be a spoiled brat. Mentally, psychologically. I let myself, have that. Even though for whatever reason, I felt it. So, I was feeling it, so I figured, alright, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to just tell my thoughts, all the subtle thoughts I'm having right now, that they're wrong, and I'm going to tell my feelings, my body, hey, all that sadness and anger and all of this emotion, it's all wrong. So stop feeling that way. Because you're feeling that way because you were thinking the wrong thing, and you already know what you were thinking, and you know that ain't right. So you don't have to feel this way. That was my higher thought about it. And I knew that I was right in that sense. I didn't have to feel that way, and that my thinking was distorted. But even so, it's not often that I feel heaviness, heavy waves of sadness, or some of the heavier emotions. Although I did when I went to Austin this last time. One of those. It was the last evening that I was there. And that's it. And I had a major breakthrough. Because of I didn't have a breakthrough, from reaching a new level of love, peace, and happiness. You know, I can get so happy that like I reached a new level and had a new breakthrough. I got it from being from getting so I got so upset and so sad and angry with myself that an old voice inside my head, an old system, not even just a voice. It was like I was I was being mean to myself. I was talking badly to myself. My self-talk had reverted to the past where I was talking shit to myself bad, and so my defense against that wasn't exactly in place either. Not just, because a lot of things change inside you. But it went on for a bit, and it had to do with me disillusioning myself and fucking up in the sense that, like, I was talking to myself about I was having expectations and hopefulness regarding this person who I wanted to get to know them, and I was hoping that they were someone I thought they were, but I never got that chance to do that for so long, even after making the attempt, asking, that I felt at a certain point that I was being abused again, narcissistically, like with that subtlety, the subtlety of being ignored. For one, it's subtle. It's not so subtle, but it's subtle as well, because you try not to make assumptions about anything, about something someone said that could be vague, or same with actions. And this was a vague action, except that it felt, at a certain point, it felt in a way that it wasn't vague at all. It felt like narcissistic. It felt like abuse, and the thing is, there's two major things I came to understand regarding that. One was well, let's just talk about it for a second. I was in a trauma bond for so long with my partner for dang near 20 years. And before that, it was with my mother. My mother was my narcissistic abuser, primarily in childhood, my primary caretaker. So I was done with that. I've been done with that. I would just walk away from all of those people, even though I didn't have to do it with some. They walked away from me first, like as a group. And by group, I mean family I loved and adored. And my narcissistic, my drug dealer friends, those guys that turned out to be all like vampires too, who were giving to me a little on this side, but really stealing from me on the other. Anyways, my point is that I was done with that kind of abuse, and here I was, like, not really chasing someone, but I did put myself out there, and the question was, let's know each other. Let's get to know each other. So, because Well, it's weird because one of the lessons it was, don't get your hopes up before you know someone. You know, don't assume. And see, my intuition is so strong. It's like it's always been really strong. I thought I could just trust it on this, and it would all work out fine. But that was irresponsible of me. I was letting myself have feelings for someone before I knew for sure. I didn't know for sure. I was like dang near sure, but I was so sure. I was so dang sure, despite not getting to physically lift up the hood and look around in there and see what's really inside a person, which I could have done with some, which I probably could have done if there was correspondence, just some basic correspondence, but there wasn't, and yet I still kind of I let my feelings continue to grow in the direction that assumed my intuition about this person was right. So I was being naive. That's what I used to do, and that's what people do naively when they get into relationships. Even when the person's right there, showing them who they are, they could still be self-deceiving about this person and letting themselves have feeling for someone who isn't good for them, who is going to abuse them. Probably in just the right way, right? Anyways, so yeah, I didn't do my due diligence. Even if your intuition is amazing, you still have to, should still check. You gotta see underneath the surface of things, see under the surface of people, a people's surface. People most of all, people, it's not like we gotta check what's inside the chair. I don't have to cut the chair open to be what, that's not the chair, the animals, the plants, nature is not going to fucking turn out to be the devil, in disguise, in a red dress or some bullshit. But a person could, someone who was once a human being could, back when they had a soul. But yeah, so I was so angry at myself and so upset in a way for letting myself disappoint myself so heavily. It was but it was it was such a heavy thing. I was so upset that I had a breakthrough, if not two, because, well, being reminded of that lesson was good. That was one good thing, because apparently I needed to go through that again. And yeah, don't get your hopes up until you actually, look at who's inside of a person's body. Look at the psyche, the soul, the situation. Not that anyone's perfect, but there's a big difference between being perfectly imperfect, the way humans are, the way every human is, including our parents and children. And there's between that and being someone with narcissistic personality disorder, bipolar, borderline personality disorder. There's a lot of disorders that really put them in a whole other category. As far as their nature, their twisted nature, their potentially twisted nature, and that's all it takes. If the potential is enough. The potential for great danger in a relationship with someone, that's enough of a warning, a warning and danger. Like, I'm approaching a human. Like, we're getting close to each other. I better be careful. I don't fall. God damn it. I don't fall for someone who's wearing a mask. I better, like, this person. I better, make sure they are who they are, who they say they are. Because there's a lot of lying. A lot of liars in this world. There really are. That's basically what an overt narcissist and a covert narcissist are. They lie in different ways, but it's almost like just a ridiculous level of lying. Like, what's the term? Compulsive. I can't remember what it is, but it means compulsive liar. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. But yeah, they lie for different reasons. But and sure, it may be based on self-deception as well. So it's like they believe their own lies. Not always. There's a part of them, even if part of them does believe their lies as they're telling them to you, just like people with souls, we have a consciousness. When we wake up, we're conscious, but we also have a shadow. We have an unconscious aspect to us. I would say that they have a massive level of shadow. Like, the amount of parts of them that were rejected were a lot, many and not far in between. But some of us get hurt so bad that we change, and there's just no going back. So for those people, they were just changed too dramatically. The soul leaves, and that's when possession becomes easy by parasitic entities, demons, our own demons. The demons that follow eat us in particular, individually, because they were passed down by our parents. They're not random demons that you get. They're like generational. was this camping store in Austin called REI. It was awesome. Yeah, so much like cool gear. That was like quality. A bunch of different types of tents. I mean, everything that has to do with camping, basically. So I was like, yeah, I could spend some Monopoly money here. Anyways, so the second breakthrough that I had in that situation, not from being all happy, joy, but like being sad, angry, and then beating myself up for my mistake, for my self-deception. I let myself care before I knew whether they were a monster or not. You know what I mean? Looks can be deceiving. So looks can be extremely deceiving. Anyways. But action isn't. You go by someone's actions, not their words. I'm sure you've heard that. It's true. You have to. You have to look closely. You have to know your own self really well. So you could probably, that helps. But knowing them helps you know, like look at their actions, all their micro actions, and add it up. Watch if you don't really look and find like a shitload of red flags that tell you danger. Like, they don't say danger necessarily, but with enough red flags, oh my gosh. If there's like a possibility that, something really bad could be true about someone, and the more red flags that add up that would equal, that are pointing to this thing that might be true about this person, but you don't want to believe it, and they don't want you to believe it either. They're playing the mind game too. They're hoping you don't, they're hoping you don't realize that they don't give a fuck, on some level, or that they're just that, like, an extreme amount of greedy or selfish or something. But yeah, that was the second thing. I was beating myself up, and that went on for, I don't know, maybe an hour or two. And it felt like a long time. It's nothing compared to how I lived before. But see, that's all it took, was a couple of hours, and I was like, I finally caught myself. I was like, wait a second. The way that I've gotten through so many things in the past few seasons, these winning seasons. See, I've already learned that lesson. I already learned the lesson of correcting my self-talk and challenging it where it needed to be challenged, replacing it with what's true and what's loving and kind, passionate to myself when those things need to be there appropriately, which is all the time, pretty much. No, it is all the time. And so I was in this state of self-anger, self-sadness, self-blame, all the bad self stuff. And my self-talk my really bad self-talk had returned, and I was just like taking it for an hour or two before I snapped, and I was like, oh, I know better than this. Why am I not? Why am I letting this continue? Why am I allowing this this blast from the past blast into the past happen. You know what I mean? I don't talk to myself this way anymore. The way I leveled up, at least, a couple of those times that I did, was from the opposite of what I was doing in that moment. It was from the high level of love that I was giving myself in moments when I wanted to beat myself up normally. It was all that compassion and patience and the kind of infinite love that God could give and does give is you give yourself a fraction of that and it changes. You change in the best way. So yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I can. At a certain point that night, as I'm walking the streets of Austin, doing what the fuck was I doing? Oh, that's right. I was charging up at Whole Foods late at night, and looking for a spot to crash. But anyways, those details aren't the important part. The important part is that I snapped and the voice that I knew better and treated me better. I trained to treat me so much better, like started speaking. One part of me started speaking to the other part of me. The inner mother, inner father that was healed as one voice, they started speaking to the part of me that was talking so much shit to myself and I'm like punishing myself and like beating myself up. And of course, it didn't. I didn't put up a fight. I wasn't like the part of me that was beating me up knew it was wrong. It always knows it's wrong. But and this was my experience before. But it knew that like all I had to do was put up those really strong boundaries within myself. Remind it that the part of me that was being abusive again, that we don't do that anymore. That we don't have to. That we've seen the massive benefit and how much better it is to love yourself when you make a mistake. Love yourself more when you make a mistake, not less. Don't try to control yourself with blame and shame and anger and toxicity and beating yourself up. That's negative reinforcement. It doesn't work. But you know what is effective? Positive reinforcement. You can love yourself to a healthy place, as I have. And it was never more. I learned this lesson already, but it was never more clear that in this new moment where I was going through that lesson once again. And that's why lessons repeat sometimes, because you haven't learned it well enough. If it's happening again, then you almost need to go through it again. It means you haven't learned your lesson, right? But you'll learn it faster the next time. You'll learn it faster the second time, because I was only kicking my own ass mentally and like just being so mean to myself for a couple hours before, I snapped. Before the time before that, the first time I learned this lesson, I was beating myself up since I was a kid, since I was a child, I took over my parents, the way my parents would do it, which my dad, he wasn't the type. He wasn't really doing that. No. He was more of a constructive criticism kind of guy. But I guess maybe that was his flaw. He was a little too constructive criticism-ish. Just in the sense that he didn't know how to appreciate just what he had. You know what I mean? It's always that strive for more that people get lost in sometimes. And it's never never good enough. Even though he was living really well for so long, and honestly, being a workaholic is really an indication of just avoiding your feelings in another way. Avoiding having to really deal with all of you, or I mean the parts of you that really need attention. It's one thing for him to run around like he's a spiritual person, but if he doesn't use the meditation and those moments of stillness to deal with the roughest parts inside of him, then it's not going to add up to anything. If he's just spiritually bypassing what needs the most attention, the place for the most growth, which is our shadow. Our shadow self is the indicator of what needs healing. I don't take potential spam calls anymore. I used to. I was. But I don't do that anymore. I say that because I was up until just recently. And that was done. But I faced a lot of spiritual warfare in my life. And so there was a part of me that was thinking, hey, you know what, someone in my soul tribe might really be trying to get through. And the devil could be, fucking might have labeled them spam somehow, you know what I mean? Just like kind of far out there. But no, it just gives a vibe of desperation a little bit. Like, I'm not desperate. If someone is meant to fucking get through to me, they'll get through to me. Right? And 99.9% of the time, it is spam. These spam robots or callers or Medicare, those Indian or Chinese fucking, what do you call it? The call centers that they call you up and like, hey, you have Medicare, Medicaid. Okay, qualify for new benefits. Okay, well, what's your medical number? And you're like, what? I don't even have Medicare, Medicaid, and they just like hang straight up. Like, not even okay, thank you or anything. Thank you for saying that. Said a lot of time. Anywho, so in that moment when I changed my mind about this person, I went ahead and did what I've learned to do every time that I feel narcissistically abused, all of a sudden, with a whole bunch of red flags around it, or at least a few. I mean, it doesn't take many. It could just be one. I just disconnected, disconnected from friendships on all my platforms that we're friends on, and just kind of deleted some things, so as not to. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it's like the best way to deal with people who are willing to dim your light, or people who are willing to dim your light but also want you to dim your light. They encourage you to do that by treating you like shit, or saying things that would make you treat yourself like shit. And they're not slick, or just straight up ignoring you. Because that's a way to do that, to devalue a person. Whenever I say, what was it I was going to say? It doesn't. That doesn't help. That usually messes it up. Memory recall. Oh yeah. They say my cutoff game is off the chain, off the charts, off the rainbow. So the other night in Austin, when I came to that point and said, basically came back to my higher senses and became kind and loving again. You know, it was so clear to me how important that was, that it was, like I said, you get faster and faster at anything like that. But I knew I was right in that moment when that was like the second thing, that the second way I benefited from that situation being wrong, and the self-deception, letting self-deception and what's the word for, like, getting your hopes up before is wise to get your hopes up. I'm not gonna even say before you should, because hey, I just don't use the word should. If it happens, it happens. There's no it should not have, or if it's something was going to happen, something is meant to happen, it will. So yeah. So something should not have happened, or something should have happened? I just don't believe in that. I believe everything is in exactly the right time and timing for each and every person. Like, there's no such thing as being early or no, because if you can't be late, then you can't be early, right? It doesn't make sense. They do say that Jesus is coming back early, but I don't think that that's meant in the same way. I think they mean that they weren't expecting what's happening now to happen for another generation. But that sounds just like somebody else's miscalculation, you know what I'm saying? Or somebody calculated that, or the demons calculated that, the adversary, the principality, and then God was just slick with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, coming back early. Like, I'm not gonna come back when you expect me. I'm gonna come back a little sooner than that. 30, 40 years. It's nothing in eternity. That's nothing. In the life of human, that could be someone's whole life. That could be half of someone's life. You know what I mean? It's everything. That could be everything. Or someone that lives till they're like 80. That's half a life. So it's a long time for us. Yeah, so I hear people say I should this and should that all the time. It's part of most people's vocabulary. And I just disagree with. I disagree with all those people the about the word they're using just because it doesn't fit in my version of reality. I know why it fits in theirs because I used to say it a lot. You know, my therapist was the one, Jennifer Harkins, amazing woman. She was the one who was able to point it out very easily. And since then, I've gained greater and greater understanding of the error that is. The cognitive distortion that it is based on a misunderstanding of how reality works. What reality is, how it works. You're just not going to be saying that, at least not in the same way, down the road. It's illogical. And that's okay. We are where we are. We're right where we are. We're right where we need to be. Always. How does free will factor? How do we have free will if God knows every move we're going to make? I don't know. I don't fucking know. I'm not saying that we don't. I'm just saying I don't know. Part of me feels as if, oh yeah, that was just Austin's existential crisis and had like going through old lessons. Earlier today, I was having another one. Existential crisis. Well, this was more existential and less of oh no, it was two things. One, I was letting go of a bad habit, a negative pattern, an addiction, whatever that may be. And addiction can be anything from drugs to food, to attention, validation. You know, it can come in many forms. The form is not what's important. The important thing is to recognize what's not good for you, what's not serving you in your life, that you're not letting go of, and to let it go. That is the point. That's what you do with those things. Become aware of them and you let them go. So that was part of it. But the other part of it was more anger and more sadness. And at first, once again, I let myself feel it. Because the last time I felt like anger and sadness, the time in Austin, I had some serious re-breakthroughs, and my self-talk, if it wasn't great right before that, it's been great since. You know, that lesson really solidified my mind. And of course the other one too, because there was two, like I mentioned, like I went over. But I was like, so this was earlier today. I was thinking to myself, I grew in a good way from the last time I was so fucking pissed off and angry and sad and didn't know why yet, or whatever. Like, it's for some reason. So that's kind of how I approached it this time. Let myself be as angry as I ended up getting, you know. I was like fixing the Christmas lights and getting real frustrated. I started getting really frustrated and just started like, I wasn't cussing at myself, but I was like, God damn it, you know, like fucking, I was starting to yell and cuss at the thing that I was doing, which was frustrating me, which seemed like it was frustrating me. So I was yelling at inanimate objects and situations. I guess that was me bypassing the whole the whole self-talk thing. That was my way of still talking shit, but to someone, but I was clear not to be directing it at me. So, but I was still angry. I wasn't angry at anyone in particular. At least I didn't know yet, because hadn't even started to be like, okay, why am I so fucking angry? And I kind of like had something. I kind of knew it probably had something to do with the thing that I was letting go, the bad habit, the pattern that I was releasing, that was no longer serving me. It hasn't for a long time, and I've known that, but I've let it still be an issue in my life. I'm like, okay, that just happened. You're fucking angry as fuck. I mean, you're angrier than you normally are, and you're sad. I was clearly sad. So I let myself feel it. I let myself go about the things that I was doing, and be pissed off, and get as sad as I felt like getting, which I didn't know how sad I was gonna get. I didn't know how deep into the rabbit hole I was gonna go, because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure why I was sad yet. I hadn't examined myself. I was just like observing that I was feeling all this stuff and acting out, like a little kid, like a little baby who's throwing tantrums and dropping F-bombs and shit like that. But I was reminded that the last time I went through some heavy ass shit like that, which was just a few days ago in Austin, I had breakthroughs. So I had a feeling I could get as sad as I fucking wanted, and it was gonna lead to something good. And I did start talking to myself about it. I'm just gonna treat this like a video journal. I started talking out loud to myself. But really, I know God's listening in the many forms that He exists. Always. So really, I'm talking to God in this conversation where I'm like starting to self-reflect as I'm talking, as I'm sharing my feelings out loud to the wind, to myself, and to God in the many forms that He exists and is listening. Like, with full attention. So part of it, so I just heard this thing on YouTube by this guy who channels Archangel Gabriel, and he was saying you're at the final. You're at the final illusion or something like that. The illusion of the soul. I think that this is what like triggered this. So, the illusion of a soul. That's kind of what triggered this thought process. And no, that's not what it was. I was listening to a different video. And it was talking about all the healing that was like ready for me to have, because I needed it for this one particular thing. It was ready to come in. This healing, all the energies, the deities behind it, and all that. The massive level of support in this process I was going through that would need, all their love and light. So what was the issue? The issue at first was about the bad habit and the pattern. In this case, it was the dark crystal, amphetamines. Because I've used it. I'm wicked for good. I don't mind using, bad things for good purposes. And it was the lesser of other evils. And I don't mean heroin. I mean like weed and alcohol. I could have been, if I wasn't on one, I'd be on the other. So I chose the one that served me the most and did the least amount of damage. That I could still heal and grow and learn lessons of life while I was on. In fact, it has its drawbacks and it had to go, but it served great purpose in its season, even though it did have to eventually go. But anyways, I had held out for a long time, and you know what? This anger came from the idea of that we weren't, of that I wasn't on time thing. That I could have been so much sooner. You know what I mean? That I delayed my blessings so much longer than I had to because of my disobedience. My disobedience in regards to this maladaptive coping mechanism. I knew it was maladaptive. So I was like, once again, kind of beating myself up about, not like I was in Austin, a little differently, like real subtly. I wasn't beating myself up, I was just sad. I was just angry and sad towards myself. Disappointed with myself. And not cussing me out, but still sometimes you just can't help but look at yourself, and that's all it takes. It's It's like, like when your dad looks at you and you know what he's thinking. He doesn't have to say it. So I didn't have to say it. But I guess I was thinking it. I was thinking that I was late. That I'm running so late, and that like all I do, they talk a lot about how I'm obedient, and I'm the one who never gave up and on God and believed in so many wonderful, incredible things when there was no evidence at all, and no support at all. Like I've been given a lot of props for that, but in my mind, there's so much disobedience as well. Like, and I said this exactly. I was like, the amount of disobedience compared to the amount of obedience, I mean, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. Like, why am I even getting any credit for being obedient? I mean, if you think about it, I've been disobedient way longer in my life than I have been, the way I've grown into, the way I am now. Which is extreme, like, as obedient as I can be, like, to the extreme, if I can perceive how to do it like that, you know what I mean? But this was just the devil trying to get in the back door, because it was based on that distortion of time, like, that I'm late, and the conversation between me and God turned into, like, I was just crying because I give all glory to God. But, like, what am I doing with all this shit about being disobedient? You know what I mean? Like, I'm taking the blame. Everything that I do that's bad or wrong or disobedient, that's me. That's my fault and my choice. I'm the disobedient one. And every time, but when it's good, and when it's like I'm waking up and I'm like being kind and loving and all that, all the good stuff that I've ever done, including being obedient, well, that's God. God gets the credit for that. And in this moment, I'm like, this is kind of fucked up, Why do I get no credit? How come I get the credit for all the bad shit? Me and my ego, Adam, the one that had to grow up in this world and fight to be where I am right now, psychologically, spiritually, mentally, but especially spiritually. I had to go through hell and back and go through all kinds of shit and like get my heart ripped out of my chest as a child. I was changed and mutated in all these ways, and my shadow was, many parts of myself were rejected and abandoned. I was taught to abandon myself in all these ways and reject, just like everyone is. It's taught that to a greater or lesser degree. I don't know. But that was the thought process. That, like, everything that I do bad, everything that I do that is bad is not from God. That's from me, my ego. Which, I'm not my ego, but like, I get the experience of being my ego as I'm believing in it and buying into that and doing bad things and not living in righteousness in some way or another. This costs everything. Being disobedient, doing what you know you should do, it costs us. It does, and doesn't. When you really know you're not doing the right thing, that feels worse. I mean, it feels worse than when you think when you're pretty sure you're okay. But no, in this moment I was like, how come everything I do is disobedience? I'm responsible for all the disobedience and all the bad things, bad choices that I make. But all the divine ones, all the amazing and the miracles that maybe God creates on through me in some way or another. But that's Him. That's not me. And it isn't. I guess the next part of this thing was it's like, well, that's not fair. It's not fair because if you're responsible, if you get credit for all the good stuff, then you get credit for all the bad stuff too. That's on you too, God. Because that sounds fair to me. You know what I mean? It's not fair that you get credit for all the good stuff and none of the bad stuff. You have to take it all. But there was a problem with this. The problem was well, what am I get credit for? You get credit for the bad, the good, then who the fuck am I? Who the fuck am I? Especially if the soul, it was an illusion. I know we're all one, and there's no separation and all that, but I've been believing up to this point that we have individuated souls. Some that were created relatively longer ago than others. But this could be, it's been suggested that this is an illusion. So I was considering it. I'm considering whether it's true. But I was having a reaction to it at the same time because of this whole well, what the hell do I get credit for? Thinking, who the fuck am I? Oh, okay. I know what I'm thinking. So I was speaking on behalf. Conversation was happening between my ego and God. I was voicing my ego, and I knew it. And that's okay to do. Because I have perspective on the hierarchy between God and ego and all that. And how the ego is more of a tool that we have to have as human beings. That it's not our real self. It's a self-image. It's a concept of a self that really does feel like ourself because we identify with it. We identify with the self-image, almost as if, to the exclusion of everything else, and that's a mistake. Because we are all one, and we're a lot more connected than we are separate. In fact, we're fully connected. And I thought this was true, even as individuated souls. even as individuated souls, we're still connected. Every soul is connected. Our egos aren't connected because each person makes their own disconnected version of themselves, which in their mind, in their imagination, their ego is individual. It's isolated. It's separate. But I was speaking up on my ego's behalf. Because it just felt raw. Like, it got the raw, just gets all the raw end of the deal. The deal of going through hell on earth and going through this healing process of, like, of all those wounds. And what happens is that the ego, you shift from ego to spirit, a spiritual identity. And that spiritual identity is like, it's like God, right? And God's starting to live the good life, and God gets everything that God wants. Which is embodiment, you know what I mean? He doesn't want to just watch behind our eyes, although he does, but he wants to live through us vicariously by being given permission by us in the way that we can do that. And that is what I've been doing. That's the process I've been on since I went to rehab 3 years ago, and before that when I started getting therapy with Miss Harkins, which was amazing. I kept becoming a better and better person. When I went to therapy, oh my gosh, this was the beginnings of the realizations, the beginning of the existential crisis that were simple. These ones were like way simpler than they are now, because they had to do with self-awareness, like having no self-awareness, or very little, or my self-awareness being very distorted, like all the way over on one side of the spectrum. So getting some self-awareness was easy, since I had none, and since that was basically what I found out I was doing in therapy and subsequently with shadow work and stuff like that. I hadn't gone to therapy yet. I hadn't gone to rehab yet. When I started getting therapy that opened my eyes and my mind and freed me in the way that I could get to the next existential challenge and dilemma.